Good evening. Good evening. If I can get your attention, we are getting ready to start the meeting. Thank you so much. At this time, we are officially calling the June regular Board of Education meeting to order. And we're going to start with our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. And before we go to public input, we're going to start with a couple of remembrances. I'm going to go to Vice President Pearson first.
We would like to ask for a moment of silence this evening for our district to recognize the passing of Marley Shavera, who was a rising 12th grader student at Val Phillips Memorial High School. We would like Marley's peers to remember her by her sense of humor and kindness. She has a passion and creativity for makeup and had a dream of becoming a ballet dancer. Marley always viewed her friends as her besties and was always her true self when around those she loved. Marley's passing has taken a significant toll on so many students and staff in the Memorial community, and we remember them tonight. Please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Marley Shavera. Thank you.
Next, we have another remembrance of a very important former school board member who transitioned and passed away earlier this month. And before we read a resolution in his remembrance, I'm going to ask one of our former school board members and longtime mentee of Juan Jose Lopez, Ananda Morele, to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Ananda de Oliveira Mirili, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to honor a dear friend and mentor. Thank you, Board President Michelle Nichols, the entire board and MMSD staff. Juan Jose Lopez had many gifts. One of them was the ability to see and believe in people even when they couldn't see for themselves. Juan Jose Lopez had dreams and visions for many people of color in this community. His dream for me was for me to become the first Latina school board member to serve MMSD. He taught everyone when that didn't happen in 2013, even close friends. He was the reason I ever considered such dignified role, and he never stopped asking me to run again until it finally happened in 2019. And he called me to tell me that he cried. Thank you for this moment of remembrance and for the recognition of his legacy.
Thank you, Ananda. The resolution is, whereas Juan Jose Lopez selflessly served our district's students, families, and staff as a Board of Education member from 1994 to 2006. Whereas Juan Jose Lopez was the first Latino elected to the MMSD school board and was also co-founder of the Latino Professional Association of Greater Madison and served the greater community through his leadership on the board of the United Migrant Opportunity Services in Milwaukee, the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and several other organizations. Whereas Juan Jose Lopez was a tireless advocate for the creation of Nuestro Mundo Community School in the Madison Metropolitan School District. Nuestro Mundo is a free public charter school serving children in grades K through 5. Juan Jose Lopez was involved in the early conversations in 2001 with parents and educators to consider forming a dual language elementary charter school as a strategy to help address achievement outcomes for Latino students. He advocated with fellow Board of Education members and the first bilingual Spanish immersion school in Madison, Nuestro Mundo, was approved unanimously to begin in the 2004-2005 school year. He later served as president of Nuestro Mundo, Inc. in the early years of the school, helping to establish Nuestro Mundo as an educational model. Whereas Juan Jose Lopez dedicated his life for the advancement of all students of color and was instrumental in creating opportunities to teach and celebrate Latino Hispanic culture. Juan Jose Lopez believed in the brilliance and grit of all students and was present at various school events. Juan Jose Lopez removed barriers and increased visibility of Latino students and their families until his final breath. Juan Jose Lopez also led efforts in diversifying the workforce and advocated to hire more individuals who identify as Latino, Latina, Latinx. Whereas Juan Jose Lopez set a far-reaching example to help local candidates of color to run for office through the organization Adelante, providing resources, mentorship, and guidance on navigating the political process. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Madison Metropolitan School District Board of Education, in memorial of Juan Jose Lopez's passing on June 6, 2023, recognizes the contributions of Juan Jose Lopez to the Madison Metropolitan School District and the greater Madison community. Be it further resolved, this statement be permanently imprinted in the Board of Education minutes for the meeting of June 26, 2023. Please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Juan Jose Lopez. Thank you. We'll now move on to our public input. Written statements submitted for this meeting. There were a summary of 19 written registrations submitted from noon on Friday, June 23rd until 3 p.m. on Monday, June 26th. And they were as follows. One person wrote in support of MMSD's budget items specific to housing navigation. One person wrote in support of MMSD's budget items specific to restorative justice. 7 wrote in support of custodians getting a $5 raise above the 8% cost of living adjustment. 6 were in opposition of ending the staff COVID vaccination mandate. 1 was in support of increasing custodial wages and in opposition of ending the staff COVID vaccination mandate. 2 were in support of the critical investments in literacy identified in MMSD's budget. 1 was in support of making the strategic framework goals less vague, more ambitious, and very clear. In addition to those 19 written registrations, 5 additional written registrations came in today. All 5 were in support of increasing custodial hourly rate by $5 an hour. We'll now move to our online speakers.
Our first online speaker is Barbie Jackson.
Hello, thank you. I was just getting out of the YouTube. So are you able to hear me fine?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I apologize for the delay. Good evening. And thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm Barbie Jackson, a member of Moses. I am here on behalf of Moses to enthusiastically support MMSD draft budget items specific to restorative justice. Moses' mission is to build collective power to dismantle the systems of mass incarceration and mass supervision, and to eradicate the racial disparities in our community that contribute to them. We work to have a common voice on issues of social justice, including stopping the school to prison pipeline. I am a trained peacemaker for Dane County's Community Restorative Court and a 25-year youth mentor in the Allied Drive and Elver Park communities. Restorative justice has a demonstrated success in reducing involvement in the carceral system. With knowledge of this fact, Moses adopted a position in support of the 16 components of the school board's 2021 safety and security recommendations, which emphasized the need for restorative justice in our schools. I and other Moses members testified in support of the 2021 budget, which expanded on those recommendations to fund 4 FTE restorative justice coaches. We are pleased to see within the draft budget reference to the inclusion of Goal 3, African American children and youth excel in school, strategic equity projects such as restorative justice, and continued ESSER 3 funding for the restorative justice program manager. Based on these, we expect and support the district's continued base budget funding for 4 RJ coaches in the comprehensive high schools. We also support the ESSER 3 funding for the RJ program manager, but request an additional element to assure base budget funding for the position once ESSER funds lapse in 2024. As revenues permit, we would support any additional funding to expand on the contract with the YWCA to provide RJ support for elementary and middle schools, and the potential RJ coordinators in the middle schools. This approach will go a long way towards serving our youth to help them find positive solutions in their daily lives, and especially in conflict situations. This will enable avoidance of punitive approaches, especially suspensions and expulsions, that feed the school to prison pipeline, which severely impacts our youth of color, especially our Black youth. Our youth deserve the care and services a fully implemented restorative justice program will provide. The measure will help realize Dr. Jenkins' vision stated in his cover letter to reflect the heart of MMSD while representing our commitment to accelerate learning, disrupt disparities, and provide scholars an inclusive learning environment where all students and staff thrive. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Patricia Lacrosse.
Hello, I am Patty Lacrosse, and I am grateful to all of you esteemed members of the board for this opportunity. I am also a member of Moses and an advocate for housing security. I'm speaking as an individual, also to support the MMSD budget items specific to housing. In Moses, I'm active in the Racial Justice for All Children Task Force, working with the housing group. The mission of our task force is also to eradicate the childhood to school to prison pipeline. And I'm a community representative on the Homeless Services Consortium Board. In my last 10 years with MMSD's Early Childhood Department, I held bi-weekly parent-child programs in the Salvation Army Shelter, the East Madison Community Center, the Beacon, Tree Lane, and others, in close collaboration with the TEP program, Early Head Start, and the EC staff who do IEPs. Under the aegis of Play and Learn, I was privileged to partner with parents and grandparents in supporting their children's well-being, providing opportunities for connection, for play, books and resources often lost in the chaos and stress of transition. I carry to this meeting hundreds of sacred stories of loss, of frustration, of grief, and of resilience, and also bursts of laughter within the normalizing space of shared music, art, and play. I represent their hopes to go home. We know that the lack of secure housing is harmful to the emotional, social, psychological, and physical well-being of infants and children of all ages, and their parents or parenting figures, particularly pregnant mothers. It creates havoc on educational readiness, attendance, and attention of school-aged children. So I am relieved and very grateful for this opportunity to support the district's proposal to provide resources to help house MMSD families in this budget. And again, I thank all of you.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder for the online speakers to have your video off until your name is called. That way we can make sure that everyone gets the spotlight when it's their chance. All right, thank you. Next up is Sandra Brown. Sandra, I think you're muted.
So sorry. I'll start over. Good evening, and thank you for having me this evening. I'm Sandra Brown, Vice President of Moses and co-chair of Moses Racial Justice for All Children Task Force. I am here on behalf of Moses to enthusiastically support MMSD draft budget items, specifically to literacy. I taught MMSD elementary school students for 36 years and mentored new district educators for 6 years following my retirement. I currently teach summer school, provide tutorial services in math and literacy, and direct curriculum and instruction in the fall term for the 100 Scholars Program, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Madison. The mission of Madison Moses Task Force is to eradicate the childhood to school to prison pipeline. Through our research, we learned that a significant contributor to the school to prison pipeline is the racial disparity in literacy. Booked but can't read, an article in the New York, the NYU Review of Law and Social Change states that 70% of America's adult incarcerated population and 85% of juveniles who interface with the juvenile court system are functionally illiterate. A separate study in Texas indicates that almost 50% of the prison population in Texas has dyslexia. Moses has adopted an issue to target dyslexia in the early grades, which is well served by a science of reading approach. We recently advocated at state assembly and Senate hearings to support literacy bills as amended to improve literacy across the state using the science of reading and to provide $50 million in funding. The MMSD budget narrative cites critical investments in early literacy include new kindergarten through 5 reading curriculum materials and a deliberate shift in the way we teach reading following the science of reading, including significant investments in teacher professional development. Moses fully support this vision of the district. We are hopeful that additional state funds will become available to spend the rollout process in MMSD, anticipating the likely adoption of the Right to Read bill. We ask the district to begin the process of screening for reading difficulties and possibly for dyslexia in kindergarten and to inform parents and caregivers of the results. We hope MMSD will lead the way, help our children thrive, and stop the school to prison pipeline, which is devastating Wisconsin's Black children and youth. Dr. Jenkins' message to the community in the proposed budget states, we have much to celebrate. Our budget makes investments in critical areas which demonstrate our commitment to equity and excellence, including the continuation of priority programs like early literacy. Moses applauds and supports this focus. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sandra. Next is Gloria Reyes.
Good evening. Thank you for the honoring resolution recognizing Juan Jose Lopez. Thank you, Nichelle, for leading this effort, and for the school board members for taking this honoring resolution. It's so important for our community. I have known Juan Jose since I was 10 years old. He was a family friend, and he was like an uncle to me. I looked up to Juan Jose as a child. He would tease me about how I was following in his footsteps as I later became school board president and the CEO of Briar Patch Youth Services, in the same path that he took. It was an honor to start Adelante Political Action Group with him that made great strides in electing people of color into political positions. After he passed, I received messages from people who identified themselves as one of Juan Jose's children. This is the kind of impact he had on young people. Juan Jose has left a legacy in our community through his advocacy, mentorship, and his commitment to our Latinx and diverse community, particularly our youth. As we acknowledge Juan Jose's achievements, I urge our Madison School Board and administration to continue his legacy by ensuring diverse representation on the board continues, while also continue to focus on advancing the education of our Latinx students through policies, budgets, and educational achievements for our students. Juan Jose left a legacy through the many people he mentored, including myself. It is our responsibility to take his commitment to our community to the next level. Juan Jose made long-lasting impact on our Madison schools, and I urge the school board to continue his legacy by renaming the next school after Juan Jose Lopez. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Next is Tyasha Aggie.
Hi, my name is Taisha Agee. I am the building custodian 3 over at La Follette High School. I just want to speak on why I feel that custodial department deserves the $5 pay increase. On September 19th, the title of the document presented to the school board stated, recommendations for wage increase to retain and recruit hourly staff. At the bottom of the screen, it stated, ultimately, this recommendation is about more than what we do. It represents affirmative steps to reinforce the notion that being concerned about human decency is who we are. Together, we can demonstrate the importance of our hourly employees in a manner which is fiscally responsible and in alignment with our core values. The same day, Ms. Ali Muldrow stated, there should be no position in MMSD starting off making under $20 an hour. 13 days ago, she reiterated that you could make $20 an hour delivering pizza for Ian. She also asked Ross if the cost of living increase would put custodial at the $20 mark and was told yes. Currently, custodial trainees make $18.31. The 8% increase still have custodials coming in making $19.77. Even a range 7 bottom level custodian with the 8% increase makes $22.30 after a year's service. Food service starting pay, thanks to the $5 raise and 8% increase, will be $23.15. Security assistance with the $5 raise and 8% increase is $26.10. Special education assistance with the $5 raise and 8% increase is also $23.15. The custodial department is the only department, if any weather-related event closed school, is still required to attend work unless using sick time. When the world shut down, March of 2020, custodial staff were mandated to work, and we were continuously told that we were essential and thanked for our work. 13 days ago, it was stated that the custodial department had used $1 million or more for overtime to ensure scholars from 4K to high school are greeted to a clean building daily. We have averaged 25 positions being open since the summer of 2021. Last September, Ross quoted not being able to afford $2 million it would cost to add custodial to the increase. Seems the district was able to afford paying half of what was needed to ensure the bare minimum was complete. Imagine the tired men and women in the custodial department saying the overtime is no longer enough. How does these spaces get clean? On June 7th, around 40 La Follette seniors took what was supposed to be a senior prank and vandalized the school. The next day was special as the boys and girls who will be our featured Lancers were graduating out of our spec gym. The spec gym took 4 hours to clean and run. And then there were 300 chairs, a stage, sound, a podium needing to be set up. Can anybody prioritize what would need to go first? Cleaning for the school day or setting up for graduation? Miss Nikki Vandermeulen was contacted this winter because of the lack of heat in my building. 3 years ago, the same person sitting in my position didn't have to juggle being short-staffed and managing the many problems that have come with construction. And trust me, the longevity of this referendum will make life easier for custodial, but we are tired. As the head custodian of La Follette High School and a mom to 4 kids ages 4 to 13, I am one of those people averaging 65 to 70 hours a week to ensure my building that has been down 3 or more people consistently and gets overtime 4 hours for every 8 hours a custodian is missing, would love to reduce my hours and have the energy to attend my kids' MSCR event.
Taisha,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry. We're over the 3 minutes by about a minute and a half. Can you try to wrap your thoughts up here in about 20 seconds?
I had 2 lines left.
Okay, great.
I said, I would love to reduce my hours and have the energy to attend my kids' MSCR event. To not feel guilty because I booked a trip to Jamaica while being short-staffed, that I started responding to emails while on vacation. La Follette is receiving 44,000 square footage added to our school. Explain to me how we're going to keep up with this.
Thank you, Taisha. Next is Ray Mendez.
Thank you. Nichelle, I hope one day to be remembered like you remember Juan Jose Lopez. It's an ambition, to feel like someone contributed so much. My appeal today to all of you is related to the strategic framework recalibration update. And to frame things, I appreciate your service, and I know I could never do what you do, all of you. I can't. I would never be able to run for board and be a member of the administration and take the flack you do. So I really sincerely appreciate it. I can offer my input as an informal parent consultant. That's all I can do from a distance, and appreciate what you do and want to support you. Over the past 4 years, I've taken input from a variety of people, board members, so much time from Ali and Nikki, thank you both, parents, teachers, social workers, community leaders, politicians, principals, former BOE board members, UW people, other board members and superintendents around the country. And I've read numerous studies, some from around the world and the country, including a few from UW and Nancy Molfenter, who's, a really thoughtful student services leader. So what I see after these 3-4 years is the overall problem as I see it, and it's kind of big picture. I see that there's too much pressure on schools to take care of our kids. Schools is the only place, apparently, in America where we put so much pressure by law to take care of their physical health, their morals, their gender identity, their mental health and security and all that stuff, where no one else has that legal responsibility. So I understand the pressures, and I appreciate that we try. There's nowhere else in Madison that's legally held accountable to do so beyond MMSD, so I get the pressure. There's a lack of shared values at our community's leadership level, and that's not pointing fingers at you. It's pointing fingers at all of us. Like, I don't know what values I share with everyone here, It's important to try and understand why we are disconnected sometimes. There's a lack of consistent system-wide strategy that leads towards optimizing our system, MMSD, to educate our children in as individualized a manner as possible. And I know it's impossible to educate every one of our kids one-on-one as individuals, but we can aspire to do that as much as possible. And I think we're getting there. I see a lot of glimpses of that. I'm relieved that we have Ali, Nancy, Nikki, Nichelle, and Laura, and so many other caring people like you working on. It makes me feel like I can not be as stressed as I sometimes can be. And actually, I think we have the components we need to succeed. I think for one of the first times in history of this place, we have a board of education that's really passionate, caring about the right things, an experienced interim superintendent, and a dedicated staff. I haven't met her, but I hear really good things. And here's something important. I think we already have universal design for learning, which I think needs to be really, really focused on and brought to life. We have examples of courageous people who speak their truth, like Nikki, and we have Pine. It's not the silver bullet, but it's going to be pretty helpful on a strategic level, I think. We have teachers. I've met so many great teachers, principals, social workers, school staff, and a lot of parents who share our values, and there's UW in our backyard. And I learned recently that we have 5,000 local nonprofits in Madison, more per capita than any other city in America, all willing to help. So we have a lot of resources. Money, I'm not so sure about, but we have so many people willing to help and give their time.
Right.
So
Um,
I'm
Ray,
running out of time.
Yeah, we already hit the 3 minutes and it's about a minute and a half over. So if you can just wrap up in about 20 seconds.
Sure.
Thank you.
I wrote some details about the strategic plan that might be helpful on a technical level. So read it. I submitted it. I think the vision you guys have is very clear. I think the strategic plan needs more precise goals. And I think UDL can be focused on. And I think one thing we can do is really have the courage to speak up and do things that might not be politically helpful, but good for our kids. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ray. Next is Caitlin Sundling.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Sundling, a physician, scientist, and pathologist in Madison. I'm speaking on behalf of the informal UW Workers COVID Response Working Group, a group of UW workers and community members dedicated to improving public health. We oppose ending the staff COVID vaccine requirement, item 8.1 on the agenda. Additionally, we hope the Board of Education will consider incorporating up-to-date COVID vaccination booster requirements into an updated policy. A COVID vaccination requirement is a basic level of protection. This is occupational protection that's needed during an ongoing pandemic. There are clear benefits to staff health, as well as benefits to maintaining staffing levels by reducing sick time. More comprehensive comments are available in our written group statement and my individual statement submitted to the board. COVID is still spreading. Current wastewater levels in our area are 70% higher than they were in a previous low point in summer of 2021. The risks of occupational exposure to COVID continue to be significant for school staff. COVID vaccination reduces the risk of severe disease, hospitalization, and death, as well as long COVID, which can lead to long-term disability. These outcomes are even more likely with reinfection with COVID, so it's especially important for people previously infected to get vaccinated. The end of the federal public health emergency, unfortunately, does not signify the end of COVID's harmful impact on our community. Disability injustice and racial disparities in education are exacerbated by uncontrolled infectious disease spread. In addition to the potential for devastating health impacts, COVID infection without adequate up-to-date vaccination will worsen staffing shortages. Some of the arguments against the vaccine requirement are based on costs or logistics of enforcement. For most MMSD staff, COVID vaccination will be covered by their health insurance, but where resources may run short, please call on healthcare partners such as UW Health and other community partners to help support the health and safety of our school staff. A vaccination policy establishes a norm that will support high vaccination rates among staff, regardless of how you enforce it. Dropping it will certainly reduce vaccination rates. I understand the testing requirement for unvaccinated staff has been a burden. Given our current understanding of COVID infection, we shouldn't consider testing as an alternative to vaccination, but I encourage you to consider finding ways to make testing readily available to all school staff, regardless of vaccination status. Vaccination forms an important part of a multi-layered approach to reducing the harmful impacts of COVID in our schools and communities and should be supported by additional measures, including air cleaning with ventilation and filtration, masking, testing, and providing appropriate sick leave. We hope MMSD will maintain effective public health approaches, such as workplace vaccine requirements, and we encourage all school staff to get up to date on vaccinations, including the current bivalent boosters, as well as updated formulations that will become available this fall. Thank you.
All right, thank you to all of our online speakers. We're now going to move to in person. Our first speaker will be Del Underbaki and Clay Engelirth. Engelirth will be next.
A disproportionate number of students of color and students without intellectual disabilities are represented in our behavioral data. Children living with low literacy are more likely to get bad grades, have more school absences, and display behavioral issues. Poor literacy rate creates feelings of incompetence, low self-esteem, and isolation. You have heard all of these statements before. In 2022, 68% of our white fourth grade students achieved proficient levels of reading. Less than 15% of fourth grade Hispanic and students with disabilities were reading at the proficient level. Only 9% of Black fourth graders achieved proficiency. These gaps expand in the 8th and the 11th grade. I find myself asking, who wins with these numbers? Who benefits from these outcomes? CCR IEP guidance calls for communication with families about how literacy levels impact behaviors and progress. Let's take these opportunities to walk in the shoes of those represented in our behavioral data. How would you respond if your friends were learning to read while your friends were reading to learn while you were still learning to read? How would you respond to moving through grade levels knowing you were being left behind? How would you respond to earning credits knowing you had not learned enough to move forward? How would you respond to holding a diploma knowing you are unprepared for college, career, or community because you are not proficient in reading? Behaviors need to be considered as canaries in the coal mine. The behavioral voice of disruptive behavior can be a plea for teach me to read. We spend a lot of time discussing how to intervene with social emotional supports. If we teach kids to read, we will be showing them we care about their learning and their futures. Mandated change is coming. We have all heard how illiteracy has impacted our state's two-year budget negotiation. Last week, as part of a WISPE conference, literacy achievement was discussed as part of a proposed IEP at a glance document. When an instant report is filed, why isn't the student's literacy achievement considered as a possible root cause of the infraction? As part of academic and career planning discussions, why can't literacy achievement be included in the plan to achieve a North Star? Why can't we explicitly ask parents how they prioritize learning to read as part of their free, public, and appropriate education? My time is up, but your clock is ticking. Calls for local control has placed the ball for creating change in your court as a Board of Education. We can start by crafting a behavioral education plan that is grounded in literacy as the essential element of our graduation, promotion, and intervention policies. How long will it take us to respond to these calls for reform? How long will it take to respond to the voices represented in our behavior education data? Thank you.
All right, Clay Engelert, and then followed by Rob Larson.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Clay Englerth. I am an electrician for the district. I'm here to speak on the $5 raise for the trades and the custodians. When I started here 12 years ago, there were 6 steam fitters. Now we have 3. There were 7 painters. Now we have 5. There were 7 electricians. Today we have 3. I have a printout of the new wages for electricians on the outside. Their wage rate will be $46.84 per hour. If we just get the 8% of our wage, we will be $39.50 for our base wage rate. But in reality, our base wage will be just $37 an hour. Because unlike the outside, we have to pay $2.37 per hour for health, welfare, and retirement, which makes us $9.71 behind. I'm pretty sure none of you would take a job for a $20,000 pay cut. So there's no way without the $5 raise we will ever get any new employees in trades. And all the work we once did when we were 7, we are still getting done. We are just hiring people from the outside to do it at an average of $125 to $150 an hour. So for every hour we hire someone to do the work we could be doing ourselves, we're paying double. I heard a lot in the last board meeting about being fiscally responsible. I'm pretty sure paying someone double to do the same job is not fiscally responsible. The custodians aren't much different. You paid somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million in overtime last year. And even with the 8% raise, the starting custodian pay will be less than food services. I believe Allie said in the last meeting that a pizza man can make $20 an hour. So I would ask you each, would you choose to be a pizza man or choose to clean up puke and poop for less? Without the $5 raise, you won't get any more custodians either. You gave the raise to basically everyone in the district, except for custodians and trades. The quote unquote essential people. The people that were here during COVID. The people that are here on snow days when it's too dangerous for everyone else to show up. So for the good of the district, I hope you all choose to be financially responsible. I'm asking you to approve the $5 raise for custodians and trades. Thank you for your time.
After Rob, there is Christina Mora.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rob Larson, proud president of AFSCME Local 60. Thank you for allowing me to speak for a couple minutes tonight. Since October, our custodial unit, as well as our trades, have been basically the only hourly employees excluded from the $5 an hour raise. We have been short 25 to 30 people on average over the last several years. We have spent well over $1 million in overtime annually. We've had more injuries, workers' comp claims, and many more burnt out employees that are trying to do their part to make Madison schools the best it can be. The increase is an investment in us that will give MMSD the ability to hire quality employees who are here for the long haul, for a career. People who care about our kids, our staff, and our community. Of course, it will also help to fill the staff shortages, which will alleviate the over $1 million spent in overtime. Most importantly, though, it will show our current employees that we are valued. Not to mention getting back to a place in these economical times where we can fully support our own families. And not only with things with a monetary value, but also getting back some of the one thing you can't get any more of, and that's time. Time with our families, time with our own children. So my sisters and brothers who have joined me here tonight would greatly appreciate your support to help us to get our unit back to a place where we can provide the type of service that goes above and beyond to make sure our schools are safe, clean, and a great place to send your children. Not only that, but a great place to work, which in turn helps with the retention issues district-wide. Thank you so much for listening, and we ask you to please support us with the $5 an hour raise and show us that we are valued. Let's get this done tonight and start moving forward to a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Christina Mara.
And if I mispronounce your name, please correct me when you come up. And Jesse Ransom will be after Christina.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Christina Mora. I'm a building custodian too at East High School. I hope you remember me when the last time you were at East High School, I was so passionate about what I have spoken to you guys, and I still carry the same passion. This is even more because I'm speaking on behalf of my coworkers, the same people that cleans the classroom every single day. And yet, we did not get that raise. I felt like we were left behind. What happens to equitable treatment? I didn't think that we don't deserve the raise because COVID or no COVID, snow days, all season, summer, winter, rainy season, we are there all the time. We can't just call in because there's nobody in the building. If there's only one custodian in the building, we can't just call in. They can approve our vacation if they know that we are always short. I have a license to teach, ma'am. But I didn't get a teaching job when I first got here. I became a custodian. Although I feel so proud to be a teacher, I am equally proud to be a custodian. We all take pride with what we do. Now I still have a teaching license. I don't know why all of a sudden I have to get this license so I can get a second job. To be a sub at Monona School District is my other job. There are days that I work 16 hours, 8 hours subbing, 8 hours being a custodian. Before, I didn't have to do that. Before, I never paid attention to how much is a gallon of.
Christina, one second. Can you just step back just a little bit, just because the mic is, that's all. Just a little bit. There you go.
It's my natural speaking voice also. Anyways, oh, the time reset. It's okay. I can take another 3 minutes. I was looking at everybody who came here on TV. They are prepared with a piece of paper and something on their phone. I didn't come here with nothing at all. I was wondering, where do I start? I don't even know where to start. And then all of a sudden, I have this warm feeling and my heart starts beating so fast. That's when I know where to start. I want to start with what's in my heart. I really think that we deserve the $5 raise. Because among everybody in the district, teachers, food service people, security guard, among all of us, the custodians work extra hard. There's nobody in the district that works that hard, that many hours. We put in so many hours for the kids because we want to make sure that the classroom they go to are conducive to learning. Everything. The teachers should be very happy that we clean our classroom really well. So, ma'am, I am advocating that we get the $5 raise because I've got 2 boys to support as a single mom. And then all of a sudden, I need to get a second job just to support my boys. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
All right, next up is Jesse Ransom and then Travis Thomas.
Hi. Yeah, I kind of just blanked. Sorry, not a great speaker. So I remember like 2 of my teachers growing up and then the custodian. The custodians do a lot more than just clean up. A lot of times the students know the custodians very well. And it's before there was police, there was custodians, you know, like it was just somebody that you dealt with all the time. Currently, the police, their starting salary is $67,408. That is $11 more than a lot of these people are making, just starting. And police generally don't have to clean up poop daily. Especially with COVID, these guys are rock stars. I did the pandemic response. I developed 3 different types of masks, UV sanitizers, ultraviolet booths. The Dane County Sheriff had me on speed dial, begging me for masks when it happened. Please don't remove the restriction for vaccinations either. That's just going to make their guys' job a lot worse. They do deserve a lot more than $5 an hour. It's the very least you can do. And then on another note, I am a convicted felon. I did the prison prison pipeline. When I came back to Wisconsin, I was 18 years old and MMSD would not let me back in. They said I'm on my own. I ended up going to prison for 4 years. A lot of the guys in there are illiterate and they are shamed and they can't find jobs. A lot of them are in there, not because they want to, it's because they don't have a choice. They have to sell drugs. They have to do really bad stuff just to get by. And they don't have to. Like I've taught some of the guys in there how to read. Like even in prison, they don't have a place they're too ashamed. Anyways, yeah, these guys definitely deserve a lot more than $5. It's the very least you could do. Even to get them partially the way up to a surviving role. Currently, you can get a better pay at Woodman's, Quick Trip. Doing pizza over at Quick Trip, stocking the shelves at Woodman's. Blue Plate is hiring right now for more, just serving food. Sub-Zero Assembly, they pay more. I don't know. If you guys want to keep your janitors, I'd pay them more.
Okay, Travis Thomas, you're up, and then Rick Marks will follow.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Travis Thomas. I'm treasurer of ASME Local 65, Dane County, and I rise in support my ASME siblings in Local 60 in the hopes that the board sees fit to give these great workers the full $5 raise on top of the 8% increase. I want to be clear, I support this because I think it's not only in the name of fairness, but competitive balance that the school district comes up with the full $5 increase. As a proud MMSD alumnus in K through 12, I can tell you firsthand the significance custodial and maintenance staff have on a student's ability to learn in a clean, safe, properly maintained school environment. The bottom line, students cannot learn without the lights working. They cannot learn if a school room is not properly sanitized or cleaned. They cannot learn if the school lacks safety of preventative routine maintenance, and they cannot learn and focus if there's no heat in the building. This $5 raise would help dramatically in filling the custodial shortage that has now burdened the school district for years. The raise would bring the district more in line with custodial jobs with the city and county, allowing the district to recruit workers and fill the gaps in service that these current workers have worked so tirelessly to maintain, despite the fact that these shortages exist. To close, I'd just like to say proper education and learning environment takes a village. It takes many people in a district working in concert to provide the best possible chance at scholastic success. These workers are the backbone of that process. It's time to show them the respect and financial security they deserve. Again, I'm rising in support of the $5 increase. Thank you for your time.
After Rick, we'll have Tanya Novinska.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rick Marks, and I am a 35-year ASME member and retired city employee and a graduate of this fine school system that you represent, Go East High. I have been called in my career an attendant, a janitor, a cleaner, a setup and tear down person, a laborer, a maintenance worker, and also a custodian. And when I was hired to be a custodian, it was I never was sure what that word meant. And when I looked it up, I was pretty proud of what I had gotten as a job, because I was called a person who has a responsibility to oversee and take care of something of value. And I think we all know that the buildings and the equipment and all those things that we value very highly, but we know that the thing that we value most around here, and that's the people, that's the workers and the learners. And that's what we're really there to protect. And you want to make sure that those people are protected by the best that are qualified to do this kind of work. And in order to do that, you have to continue to keep making sure that they're paid at the level that those people are expected to be able to get paid. I can tell you that just not that many years ago, my brother Jim was hired here to work for the Madison Metropolitan School District. And during that time, there were 600 people that he was competing against to get this job. 600 people that desperately wanted this job. Now, not so much. That can't continue, or we're going to erode not only the pay and benefits, but the overall ability to care for those folks that we need to care for. In addition, there are people all over this state and the rest of the country that look to Madison and our school district as one of those school districts that create a standard. And we want to continue to maintain that standard, because you're not just eroding the standards of this group of people, but eroding the standards of people all over the place. And so please make sure that you remember that when you decide to take that vote. And this is a $5 raise that, as everybody has said, has gone to everyone else. And this is a group of people that are traditionally marginalized, people that have come in, that are immigrants, people that start out at the beginning of their career with trying to work their way up. And we want to make sure that as a system that believes in inclusion and equity, that the very people that we are trying to help are not the ones that we're going to leave behind. Thank you.
After Tanya, we'll have Steve Books.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Novinska. I currently work at West High School as the building custodian 2. I am currently the interim building custodian at Cherokee Middle School because West is under construction. I'm here to ask that custodians and trades that we deserve the full $5 raise above the COLA increase of 8%. We are currently down 25 to 30 custodians. We have been working very hard to cover and keep these buildings clean. Why are we so short-staffed? I recently searched on the MMSD job site and nothing came up for under custodian. The only term that I could find for job search was custodial, There are other tags that should be used to increase applicant traffic. We would be happy to sit down with administration to help figure this out, so we get the staffing that and coverage that we need. Another thing that would increase our need, or excuse me, offering a competitive wage, which is competitive with similar jobs. My friend has worked for Madison Metro Bus for 5 years. She is similar to a custodial worker 1. Her current wage is $31.16 an hour with WRS pension and benefits. I earn as a building custodian 2, $31.93 after 20 plus years and promotions with a lot more responsibilities. Someone said to me 2 weeks ago, you survived the first week of summer cleanup. I myself have survived 21 first week summer cleanups, which amounts to 105 days or 840 hours. Most people don't know what we do. Summers consist of working in extreme heat and humidity while deep cleaning buildings to make sure and readying boilers for the next heating season. Each piece of furniture has to be removed from the room, cleaned from ceiling to floor, heating vents maintained as well. Floors are scrubbed, stripped, rinsed, furniture is moved, and then it's basically back in and repeat. When school is closed for inclement weather, we still have to come in to remove snow and ice, risking life and limb. COVID, we were shut down and we were the only department required to report to work in person, risking our health and lives. We perform a vital service, providing students and staff with a clean, safe environment. I hope you follow the district's core values and mission statement and include custodians in this $5 raise. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Steve Brooks, and then after Steve, we have, I think, 6 more speakers. Chris Gomez Schmidt will follow after Steve.
Hello. Yes, hello, school board, community members. I have a couple issues tonight. Yes, I'm Steve Brooks. I'm here as a Madison citizen, first of all, and I do work out at Bill Phillips Memorial High School as a SEA special ed aide. So my 2 issues tonight are the funding for cleaning for custodial services, funding the staff for that service, and tardy policy. So I'll start with cleaning. Okay, as you know, we are under construction at all 4 high schools, and I learned this year that a lot of schools in Madison School District were having custodians go to other schools at night. Well, anyway, I also found out we have 56 schools, so that's a lot of school cleaning at night to do. As far as I was told this year, how many schools. So this year at Memorial, I was not happy that our night staff got apparently pulled off to go to a different school. And as a result, the floors were a mess. They did not get cleaned. And there was an article in the Cap Times, I believe last February or last winter sometime, that did state that said our schools are filthy. Well, the schools under construction are, the construction maybe has something to do with it. However, not having staff, funding the staff to clean the schools during this construction, that was bad. So the floors did not get cleaned. And yes, they were down to concrete because the tile was removed. So coffee stains were there on the concrete. You'd have gum, the usual dirty things stuck to the concrete. So is this a quality thing to have in the high school that it wouldn't get cleaned for weeks? And I personally, after school sometimes would take a mop if I could find one, because one mop closet was taken away due to construction. So that didn't help. So my bottom line is that please find the funding. My question is, who's the lobbyist? Who's the lobbyist to go to Governor Walker and say, hey, we got to clean the schools. Come on, fund the money, find the money. You need to do it. Cleaning creates a mood, and my mood was not very good last year due to that. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And I had to look at my old Boy Scout manual to see that, and I found it. Sorry. And it said, litter attracts litter. And it took me a while to find that. Thank you. I'm for the $5 raise.
After Chris Gomez-Schmidt will be Eric Anderson.
Thank you. I'm speaking to you tonight to provide perspective for the long-term effects that the budget you're voting on tonight, having been involved in the first 4 months of this budget process. For 2 years, the MMSD board has discussed the fiscal cliff ahead once federal pandemic funding for education ends. Yet this budget will make the fiscal cliff even higher without a plan that I can see to address the long-term shortfall it will create. This budget uses both one-time federal funds and fund balance to cover this new operating deficit. There is no doubt that this budget's salary increase for staff, 8% plus an average 2% steps and lanes, is an incredible boost for each individual staff member. This was another difficult year, and everyone is challenged by the rising costs of inflation. Staffing shortages continue, as you're hearing tonight, and the pressure to address this reality is understandable. Investment in staff is an important priority. Yet when the 8 to 10% investment in each individual is added up to over 4,000 employees, it adds $26 million to every future budget and will affect district finances going forward in significant ways. So it is the responsibility for each board member to be realistic about future budgets and the significant challenges ahead. Those challenges include declining enrollment, increases to healthcare insurance costs, increased funding to charter and voucher schools, and significant investments needed in instruction, in staffing, as we're hearing tonight, in strategic equity projects, maintenance for aging buildings, and meeting the district's 2040 renewable energy goals. I think everyone in this room can agree that over many years there has been inadequate state investment in public education. This year's state budget provides a welcome increase in funding. We should collectively continue to advocate for stronger investment in our public schools. It is needed. However, and what is frustrating is that no matter what the funding levels are that exist, every school district must still balance their budget as a responsibility to their local communities and to future students. That puts all of you as board members in an extremely difficult position, and I want to recognize that. My main point tonight is to ask you to recognize that overextending the current budget will create challenging budgets going forward that will likely directly affect schools and classrooms and your ability to address many other priorities where investment is needed. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you for the difficult job you do every day, to board members, to staff, teachers, custodians, trades employees, and I sincerely hope you will find a way to govern effectively together as a board with your new interim superintendent. Thank you.
Eric, and then Brittany McKinney.
Good evening. My name is Eric Anderson. I'm the president of Local 65, AFSCME in Dane County. I didn't prepare anything tonight. I understand there is a budget amendment on the agenda for a $5 an hour increase, or actually $3.20 an hour increase. We are advocating, one thing I know about budget amendments is that they can be amended. I would propose a floor amendment on that budget amendment this evening for $5 an hour increase. My brothers and sisters in AFSCME Local 60 have been cut out of $5 an hour increase that folks were offered this last year. And appreciate Nikki for bringing this proposal forward. And when I'm done speaking, don't applaud for me. Applaud for Nikki, and we should all be more like Nikki. Thanks, Nikki.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brittany McKinney. I grew up in Madison Metropolitan School District and served for about 16 years as an employee. I stand before you today to bring up some racial disparities as well as some things that have been going on within the district that I have experienced as well as my former colleagues. Back in 2016-17 school year, when I was employed with Madison Metropolitan School District, I filed a discrimination complaint against 3 of my administrators. You roll around to 2021, one of my administrators who I filed a discrimination complaint against is then my administrator. And I bring this to your attention as the board because I understand from previous meetings that the board has had that it has come up about HR. This is really big for me because I have 3 children that are going through this district, and to know that HR as well as the district is not taking these type of things serious is weighing pretty heavy on my heart. When I got into the position, I was formerly a administrative clerk senior. And to date, from what I know, I was the first African-American head secretary at the high school level. And for me, that was a huge accomplishment because considering that Madison Metropolitan School District has been around for over 50 years and never having anyone Black in that position was pretty big. I speak because a lot of staff members that I have spoken with, both that are now current as well as former MMSD employees, have had the fear of not wanting to speak out due to being reprimanded or terminated, or in my case, having a voluntary resignation. Not being pushed, with the fact of being pushed out and not being able to speak up, we're told to just deal with it. A lot of the stuff that we've had to deal with was threats from our administrators. We've had to deal with retaliation. We've had to deal with a slew of other things that we need more than 3 minutes to explain. This past April, I had an agreement with MMSD to voluntarily resign. And I bring that up because with my voluntary resignation, it was never stated that I could never apply for additional, other positions within the district. To date, I have applied for 2 head secretary positions in which one I was referred to the hiring staff. Went through a lot of back and forth with that just to come to the conclusion that I was told that I could not get the position because one of the administrators was leaving the district. Come to find out that administrator is still with the district. Now I'm in a space where it's as if I'm feeling that I'm being blacklisted or I'm flagged from what I was told in the system. And now that any position that I apply for, I will no longer get, whether I apply now or in the future. I've had many talks with current staff members trying to figure out a way that I can get back into the district, as my passion is helping students. I've done this for over 16 years. I started when I was 14 years old working with Madison Metropolitan School District as a program leader with MSCR. And I feel that if it's not spoken upon now, that it'll just continuously be swept up under the rug, and that the board as well as HR needs to change, or else what are we going to do now for our students and for our parents that have to go through these things that they don't get the chance to speak upon because of they don't know what'll happen to their children or what will happen when they're not in the schools. Thank you for your time.
Okay, our final 3 speakers. I think this is Makia Pierce or Peace. I'm sorry. Then after that is Kim Gasper Ruback, and then Derek Wallace to finish us up.
Good evening, board. My name is Makia Price, and I also was an employee at La Follette with Brittany Kinley. Uh, Speaking out for her on her behalf, I read this thing on Facebook. It said, "You are not truly free unless you're your authentic self." And I noticed, like, when you being your authentic self and you color, you good enough to work with the kids, good enough to discipline the kids, good enough to talk to the angry moms and be security. But when you challenge your administrator and let them know, like, hey, this don't feel good for Black and brown students, this won't be a good look, then you pushed out, or either you got to go somewhere else. So just supporting Brittany. I hope that you guys really look into her case. Like, it take a lot to speak out, and so just supporting her, that she was really a great secretary. Also security, like, she had a great relationship with students, parents. She even helped me with parents when they came in angry, like getting to know them, and also like letting them being trustworthy. So please look into her thing. Thank you.
Gasper Rayback.
Hi, I'm Kim Gasper Raybuck. I was a public school teacher in San Francisco and Oakland, California, before I had to leave because they were unable to keep the schools in both of those districts clean. I had 142 children in my 7th grade come through my classroom every day. By the time I left, the only cleanliness that was happening in my classroom is that the janitors were coming to take the garbage twice a week. That was it, twice a week. Nothing else happened in my classroom. Of my 142 children, I had 142 Black children in my classroom. We went from 8 custodians in my building to 4 custodians in my building to 2 custodians in my building. I'm here today to talk about racism and Madison School District. I felt it was racist that we had 2 custodians in my public school of 1,000 children, almost all of whom were Black. All 142 of my children were Black. If we're going to talk about fighting racism, we have to talk about it where it really counts. Here in Madison, Wisconsin, 25% of Black children suffer from asthma. The national rate is 17%. The rate for white children who are experiencing asthma is 7%. I am sufferer of asthma. I had to stop teaching school because my classroom was impossible for me to teach in. That means it was impossible for my students to learn in. Dust mite, mold, mildew, cockroach droppings, and many other pollen, et cetera, many other things that are not being cleaned out of our classrooms because we are 25 to 30 custodians short in a district in Madison, Wisconsin, one of the most well-to-do cities in the state, one of the most expensive cities to live in. Right now in Madison, Wisconsin, nationally, we have the highest increase in rent year over year. I'm happy to show you the newspaper articles. My rent went up $127 last year and $175 this year. I can't believe any of their rents are different. This is a question of race and racism, making sure that our children could go to a clean school and learn. Children who are suffering from endless asthma miss many more days of school than children who are not. I would like to see Laura and Allie and Savian and Nichelle and Maya and Blair and Nikki and Lisa all follow a custodian for a day. I think that's your job, to follow a custodian for a day, see what they do for all of our children. We have a responsibility to all of our children, including our Black and brown children who suffer disproportionately when we have a massive lack of custodian in our schools. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board tonight. My name is Derek Wallace. I'm the Vice President of AFSCME Wisconsin, and we represent thousands of workers across Wisconsin, including the custodians here who work at the Madison Metropolitan School District. We're glad the board has decided to maximize the cost of living increase, but let's remember that a percentage-based increase benefits the employees earning the most, not the employees earning the least. During the day, I work for Dane County, and at our workplace, we made sure that all hourly employees saw at least a combined $5 per hour raise over the past 2 years. And that's because inflation hits those at the bottom of the wage scales the most. Obviously, the district did the same thing here at the beginning of this school year, which was great, except the district left out our custodians in the $5 per hour raise. I think this marks the 4th time that we've organized to come speak to you all here since the start of the school year. The first time, my sister, a teacher at Cherokee Middle School, explained the significant burden which is placed on teachers and other staff when custodian positions go unfilled, as you just heard. The second time, the former superintendent implied that we shouldn't be fighting each other and we should be working together. I want to be clear that employees raising their voices and demanding their worth after they're left behind in a wage increase that all other employees received are naturally going to be frustrated, but yet we work together. Superintendent said to vote. We voted both in November and in April. The superintendent said, help us lobby to get state aid. Now, just last week, we have a bill providing additional $1 billion in state aid to public schools over the next 2 years. We've been team players, and now we need you to support our team of custodians too. The 8% COLA, as you've heard, was only going to result in an average increase of $1.50 an hour for the average custodian, which is less than the $5, a third less of the $5 per hour than other classifications those classifications already received this school year. And, I'll just say this isn't easy for custodians to do. I think largely with a couple of exceptions that you've heard here tonight, it's a group of workers who just want to get their job done and remain out of the spotlight. But most of you were here last year when the custodians walked out of the meeting. Now try and imagine what would happen to the safety in our schools, the cleanliness, if there weren't custodians at all. Those vacancies will continue to be the reality in many schools until this board acts. So I urge that you act quickly and decisively tonight. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers tonight. All right, we're going to move into our minutes. And I also want to welcome our new student rep, Talia Richmond, who is with us virtually. Can you hear us, Talia?
Yes, thank you.
All right, wonderful. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated May 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Any corrections or discussion on the minutes? All right, Talia, your advisory vote to approve the minutes? You want to say aye or yes?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor, aye? All right, none opposed, those pass 7-0. Next, we'll move into board president announcements. All right, to celebrate our students and staff, we are super excited to see our scholars back in our schools for the summer semester, which began last week. Additionally, MSCR programming continues to offer the Madison community a wide variety of options for all ages. We are looking forward to a summer full of engaging, learning, and fun activities. Thank you to our staff for creating these experiences for our scholars and community. The board would also like to extend a special thank you to outgoing Assistant Superintendent of Financial Services, Ross McPherson. Ross has done an exceptional job in helping the district navigate complexities in school finance while overseeing state and federal one-time funds resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Ross, thank you so much for your leadership, your expertise, your years of service to MMSD, and we are wishing you the best in your next chapter. Let's give him a round of applause.
Celebrating our community. On behalf of the Board of Education, we acknowledge June as Pride Month, recognizing the impact and contributions of the LGBTQIA+ community. has had locally, nationally, and internationally. June is a time to celebrate and demonstrate support to our LGBTQIA+ community, raise awareness, and promote an inclusive and welcoming community for all. Additionally, we recognize June 19th, known as Juneteenth, is a federally recognized holiday and a time to celebrate African American contributions, reflect on our nation's commitment to liberty and equity, equality, but equity, and honor the brilliance, creativity, capabilities, and bright futures of our Black children and youth.
And lastly, a quick update about our superintendent search. The work has continued in the search for a permanent superintendent for MMSD. The search firm, along with district staff and our Board of Education, has been meeting with Alma Consulting Group. And as we move forward into the summer, we will be holding a late July workshop in order to fine tune our process for engaging the community shortly after the new school year begins. We look forward to you all paying attention and engaging with us in the coming months. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our interim superintendent.
Thank you. Thank you, Nichelle, Board Chair. I want to just take a couple of minutes for some celebrations. First of all, I want to celebrate the end of a great year for all of our staff, and we hope that our staff members have a restful and rejuvenating summer. I also want to celebrate the beginning of summer school. I know the amount of work that goes into summer semester. It is like opening a whole nother school district in the summer, and just want to appreciate and support the staff members who are working in our schools this summer. And finally, I want to thank the Board of Education for appointing me as the interim superintendent. I bring every day my heart and head to this work, and am honored that we had an opportunity to spend our Friday together in the board retreat. And I am positive that we can make a positive difference in the lives of our students, families, and community moving forward. As the interim superintendent, as you know, I'm focused on 4 major priorities: student achievement in social and emotional health and well-being, creating the conditions so that the Board of Education can conduct a superintendent search, and also strengthening our communication and ways of working. Finally, I'm committed to strengthening staff, principal, and teacher hiring and retention practices. And now a few words about our budget process this year. As the interim superintendent, I want to say, first of all, thank you to Ross McPherson for the work that he has done over the years supporting this district. As a colleague and a friend, Ross, I appreciate everything and wish you only the best in the future. I know that our paths will cross again. I also give my commitment to working with Bob Soldner, our new Assistant Superintendent for Financial Services. Bob, welcome to the team. And I know we will have a productive working relationship moving forward. The preliminary 23-24 budget demonstrates how we value our staff by investing in the maximum cost of living adjustment at 8%. It prioritizes classroom and student supports and mental health supports using one-time ESSER sources. Continues investments in early literacy, our full-day 4K program, and the science of reading. However, as you know, while federal pandemic funding will go away after this fiscal year, our needs will not. Therefore, the Board of Education, myself, and my cabinet will continue to look at where we can adjust, repurpose, and find additional sources of revenue. We have decisions to make, and we can make them together. As a team, we'll set our district up for ongoing success while being mindful of factors such as declining birth rates and declining enrollment, nationwide staff shortages, and limited resources from federal and state funding sources. We're also facing, as you know, a historic rate of inflation. We are not alone. Many school districts across the state and the nation are facing these same challenges as we are in MMSD. Our first job as educators is to ensure our students are receiving a world-class education
where students are prepared for their future and where our staff are able to do their best work. This budget is a step in the right direction, and there continues to be work ahead. I look forward to the partnership with our Board of Education and the Madison community during this critical next year. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to your first official board meeting in this capacity. We look forward to working with you. Oh, yes. Oh, there's a video. All right, well, let's do a little clap up for Lisa and the video, okay? All right, we're going to keep moving through our agenda. Next, we're going to have a report on the items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on June 5th, 2023, and I will go to Chair of the Instruction Work Group, Board Member Muldrow.
Thanks, Board President Nichols. We talked about, thanks, Board President Nichols. We discussed 3 major areas, including the vaccination mandate for staff, which we will vote on this evening, revisions to the behavior education plan, and apologies. And our strategic recalibration. Our next meeting will be August 7th, and we will talk about the possible agenda at our next regular board meeting. There is no instruction work group in the month of July.
Thank you, Board Member Muldrow. Next, we'll report on items that proceeded through the operations work group held on June 12th, 2023, and I'm going to pass that over to the Chair of the operations work group, Board Member Castro.
Thank you. So this past work group, we discussed the final look at the June preliminary budget in the work group forum, and we heard and entertained some budget amendments, got more information and analysis from administration before our final vote tonight. This final budget does include the largest investment in staff wages in the history of the district. It also includes our sustained investment in full day 4K and mental health. And so looking forward to our vote and discussion tonight. We will have no work group meeting in July, but we will reconvene on August 14.
Thank you, Board Member Castro. As Board Member Muldrow indicated, there are two items that were in the instruction work group that we do need to vote on tonight. The first being item 8.1, the COVID-19 employee vaccination mandate policy. I move that the Board of Education approve the immediate end of the COVID-19 plan approved by the Board of Education on September 27th of 2021, which included the employee vaccination mandate and related mandatory testing.
Second, Maya.
All right, discussion. Board Member Muldrow and then Board Member Vandermeulen.
Thank you, Board President Nichols. I want to explain my vote. I feel very grateful to our medical experts who have really driven home to the board that our current policy is irrelevant to the current evolution of COVID, that the vaccines we're currently mandating don't actually protect people from COVID at this point in the pandemic. And so what we would be looking at revising would be a mandate for people to boost, and that would be an ever changing mandate. And because we don't have the support that we would need or the infrastructure that we need to do something like that across governments, I'm voting tonight that we end the mandate for staff. I think COVID has evolved and so should our approach to COVID. And I thank the folks who spoke up tonight around their concerns for what happens when we no longer mandate vaccination. I think there's a need to continue to be in conversation around the public safety implications of COVID.
I'm arguing against getting rid of the mandate. Here's why. Very simple. As an individual with disabilities, I'm far from the only one in this district. I have to worry about those who are immunocompromised, who wish to get an education like everyone else, who may not have that opportunity. The CDC may have said that as long as you don't have 4 or more comorbidities, you're fine. The majority of individuals with disabilities have at least 4. We need a safe place to be able to be educated and to go. I feel that this policy needs to be rewritten so that it mandates the current practice of what the doctors are saying. That does not mean getting rid of it. To get rid of it, we are doing is allowing the vaccine to possibly mutate. And it could be another variant. We are a very large district. I'm afraid for our students, and it's that reason why. Although, I almost said president, sorry, Board Member Muldrow makes an excellent point that the science has changed. Absolutely. The only thing we need to do is to keep up with the science, which is to change the policy to fit the current science. Thank you.
Board Member Castro and then Board Member Simkin.
Thank you. Yeah, just to explain some of my vote on why I will vote to end the mandate tonight. Pretty much in order to maintain a vaccination mandate, we need support from all levels of government. And so whether I agree with it or not, the federal government has deemed this pandemic over and has taken away a lot of institutional support in order for us to implement this mandate well. Were we to continue it, we cannot implement this mandate well. And so I want us to do things well. And that's just not the case. In addition, we would not have the support from much of the healthcare industry, such as healthcare providers. And so that's what makes this complicated. The science is still evolving. and we will continue to monitor that. It's my hope that in the coming years, COVID will be implemented in the other suite of vaccines mandated from early childhood on.
I'm in favor, excuse me, of continuing with the vaccine mandate. And the reason why is because I believe that it is our responsibility as a large district and as citizens of Madison to do what we can to keep those who are most vulnerable in our community safe, and that that a continued vaccine mandate does that. I agree with Board Member Vandermeulen and Board Member Muldrow that in its current iteration, it doesn't work. And it is a complicated task to keep it updated. I believe we're completely capable of doing that if we have the will to do so.
Board Member Mosner Feltham.
Thanks. I just wanted to sort of respond to what Board Member Castro said about not being able to enforce a mandate well, and I agree with that. And I would add, I'm gonna vote to keep the COVID mandate. But I would add that it's okay with me to have policy that we can't necessarily enforce completely all the time, every time. I'm a new board member, so I am open to having my mind changed about that, but that's where I'm at right now.
Any further discussion? Okay, so remember, the motion again is to approve the immediate end. So if you are voting aye, you'll be in support of the immediate end. And if it's a no, then it is obviously not to approve that. So I'll start with Talia. Do you have an advisory vote, aye or no, on this motion?
No.
All right, thank you. Board Member Mosner Feltham. Does she have to be on mic? Doesn't matter. Okay, can you do it on mic? Sorry. Just
No.
Board Member Vandermeulen.
No.
Board Member Pearson.
Yes.
Board Member Nichols. Aye, yes. Board Member Castro.
Aye.
Board Member Muldrow.
Aye.
Board Member Simkin.
No.
Yes.
Thank you. I lost count there. That is 4-3. It passes. All right, moving on to the next item that we need to vote on is agenda item 8.2. I move that the Board of Education approve the changes to the behavior education plan for the elementary, middle, and high school levels, policies 452B, 452C, and 452D as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular Board of Education meeting dated June 26, 2023.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
All right, discussion. Board Member Simkin and then Board Member Muldrow.
At this time, I don't have any changes that I'm proposing. I do want to see us soon take a very deep look, both collaboratively with the board and with administration and with teaching staff, to look at the data around the BEP, how effective the measures are, how they're impacting the ability of teachers to be able to teach in the classrooms, and then use that information to make large changes to the BEP. Thank you.
Board Member Muldrow.
We can't hear you.
I'm wondering if members of the administration can speak to our approach to eliminating suspension at the elementary school level, and any exceptions around suspension at the elementary school level, that these changes indicate.
There's a small number of occurrences across the school year that cause major harm, both in witnessing and physical harm to students or staff that need to be addressed. And it takes time to address these things. And having in-school suspensions are, Ms. Stanford and I are not asking for this because we think that the out-of-school suspension is going to correct the behavior, but it takes time to de-escalate the situation, both for the students who witness these harmful behaviors and for the people who were harmed. And in-school suspensions are often not effective at giving us any kind of time as elementary school because there's no one to supervise the in-school suspension without pulling people off of their other responsibilities. Meaning that if a social worker needs to supervise an in-school suspension, that means they're not seeing students for that entire day. So sometimes there needs to be a readmit conference. And we are thinking about maybe 6 incidents out of 12,000 elementary students across the school year that need to be addressed in more serious ways where we have time to respond to all involved and not only to the student that is causing the harm.
So I have several issues with that. One is that if we're talking about something that across our 32 elementary schools would impact around 6 young people, if we're having a policy of exceptions that makes the young people who are suspended at the elementary school level incredibly easily identifiable, I think that there's an area of tension around that for me as a board member in terms of the utilization of suspension as an intervention. The other issue I have with that is at the elementary school level, we often talk about behavior as communication. And there's a reason why you can't be criminalized for behavior, no matter how egregious, before the age of 10 years old. And that's, really based in what is a developmentally appropriate approach. So one of my curiosities is why suspension versus mental health intervention? Why suspension versus having, a nurse intervene and say, hey, we need to promote mental health days for our students when they're really struggling at school? Is there a result we're hoping to get from suspending students and administering a punishment in reaction to behavior at the elementary school level that we don't think would be better done by promoting an intervention around students' mental health and wellness?
I think the administration agrees that mental health interventions would be our first priority. It takes a lot of time to get mental health interventions set up for our scholars in our schools. And so the situation of students witnessing violence in our schools and then having the person who enacted the violence, even if they're less than 10 years old and didn't do it on purpose, they are still witnessing the violence and the harm is still being caused. So we have to be careful on behalf of all of the students to make sure that we create space. Out of school suspension would be, if we had different terms in this big overhaul of the BEP, it would be a good idea to think about it not as a consequence or a punishment, but as a way to bring students and parents to the school with us after there's been a cooling off period from the occurrence.
I guess the last thing I'll say is I think that
when you're talking about elementary school students and you talk about violence, you talk about like a 6-year-old hitting a 7-year-old with a truck, or you talk about a 4-year-old hitting another kid in the sandbox with a shovel. One of the things that stands out to me is when that is considered violence and when it isn't. We know that when we allowed suspension 4K through 5th grade, that the only children who were suspended in 4K were African-American boys. So we're not just talking about when we use suspension, we're also talking about who is disproportionately suspended or removed from school. And that makes this conversation complex, and particularly complex at the elementary school level, where we see a disproportionate number of African-American students exposed to restraint and seclusion. I'm really struggling with how to support that. I felt like the majority of adjustments that were made to the behavior education plan really were about trying to find the appropriate response to student behavior in order to support students. I've asked for years, what is the benefit of suspension? What is the good, positive thing that comes out of suspension? And no one has ever said, oh, once a student's suspended, they're more likely to be academically successful. In fact, what I've heard over and over again is once a student is suspended, they're more likely to be suspended again. Can you talk a little bit about the benefit of suspending elementary school students, or the very rare instances in which students would need to be suspended, what the benefit is and what that should look like?
What the benefit is for the student being suspended, or what the benefit is for those who are harmed?
I would say if there's benefits for both, I would love to hear that there are benefits for both. If there's benefits from one group and not the other, I would appreciate your candor.
So the benefits, it's hard to talk about this in terms of benefits because I don't believe that any of this is a positive situation. I think what we are seeking is to have an avenue to create a space in a space of time to organize for restoration and healing. So, for example, if there was an extreme negative altercation between students that result in a large injury, then we would want some space and time to get the proper people to facilitate the conversation, to manage the behaviors that were happening, and to bring the community back together in terms of the students who are witnessing or being harmed by another individual. We are not asking for 4K through 3rd, we are asking for 4th and 5th graders. In terms of the student, the best thing I can say as far as a reach on the benefit for the student is we have situations where we need parent support to follow through with mental health providers, because the school district only has so much capacity to provide mental health services that go beyond our social workers, our psychologists, and our nurse. So nobody in our system can do beyond that scope of school-based mental health work. And we can refer out, but if the parent declines all the services or is unreachable, then we are in this place of no collaboration. And so we need collaboration on behalf of the student. And that is when I would say that it would benefit the student if we could get a larger collaboration around the student for support.
I appreciate that explanation. I will say, I think that suspension doesn't necessarily inspire collaboration with families. And I think that suspension sends young people a message, not that they've done something bad, but that they are bad, and that they don't belong in their school. And I think recovering from an instance in which you've done something bad means having the response to that instance not define you as an unsafe person. At the same time, I want to be considerate of the impact certain behaviors have on the greater community. I do think I'd like to adjust this portion of the adjustments we're making to the behavior education plan to be more centered in mental health, or offering mental health days in collaboration with families or students. But I'm curious what other board members have to say.
Thank you, Board Member Muldrow, Board Member Vandermeulen, and then Mosner Feltham.
Yes, I'm voting no on this based on fourth and fifth grade suspension. And the reason I am is as follows. The two groups that are restrained the most in elementary school and in school in general are African Americans, primarily males, and the disabled. In fact, over 400 incidents at one point on the disabled in the past few years. My issue is this: we're not worried about harming the community. It really looks like we just want to segregate the community into who we don't want to traumatize someone. That's been used for how many years, that our behavior is traumatizing instead of finding out why. We have a duty to educate absolutely every student. And that doesn't mean that every student is in a regular classroom. Some need a least restrictive environment. And that's what the law says. The problem being is you can't get a least restrictive environment if you're not allowed in the building always. And that's what, unless you are on homebound instruction. When you do not provide that information, those children aren't getting it. And they're not getting instruction. And then we discuss collaboration, and this is where I really have a hard time. And I respect everyone and their opinions because everyone's working at their best capacity. And I get that. And this is a tough business, and you need to be able to create a safe environment for everyone. I understand that too. But where I can't get it is that if the parents don't comply, we will punish the student by keeping them from school based on the seriousness of behavior that we're going to set, that could be changed, that could be done on a subjective. We don't have an objective standard. Without an objective standard, we have possible gray areas. When you have gray areas, that's where bias creeps in. So it's for those reasons I cannot support it.
Board Member Mosner Feltham.
Thank you. I'm curious about if you see it working the way that you hope it works in the middle schools. That makes you think like, yeah, we could really use this in those few cases. And the reason I ask is I generally didn't at the high school. Not that I was super duper close to the behavioral response stuff, but I don't know. Like typically when I don't know that it functioned as a cooling off. And the other thing I would be curious about is like where there are students and families who take their own cooling off period, right? Who call their kids out sick for a couple of days or whatever. How does that show up? Or does that show up at the elementaries?
The research is pretty clear that suspension does not correct behavior. So but it doesn't, to suggest that somehow something's magically different between a fifth grader and a sixth grader is also not very accurate. As children, while the average age is probably around fourth grade for more abstract thinking for most of our scholars, that the idea that they are not going to be suspended for bringing a look-alike weapon or injuring another person in fifth grade, and then in sixth grade, the rules are completely different, is also, I would ask the board to think about the inconsistency in if this is about whether we believe that suspension corrects behavior or if it's just about trying to correct it at the elementary level.
Thanks. Do you at the elementary school level, do you see ever, or I guess not, that's why you would be asking for this, but do you see families doing that, taking a cooling off period without the sort of on the book suspensions?
It's certainly the family's choice. Most times though, I think the families that are involved in taking a cooling off period are really already working with us. There are some exceptions to, we are not trying to punish a student for their parents' uninvolvement in the school. However, we need a collaboration with the adult. With 612 students, there is a difference in terms of if a student leaves property the student is allowed to be off property without supervision because they're old enough. If they run off property for us, we are putting staff in danger and the student in danger in terms of what we can do once they're off property, which is ultimately then they're restrained and secluded in order to keep them safe. So the reason that the ask is out there is because of serious injury for out of school suspension and the amount of time it takes us to gather like a student support services team to help do a restorative conversation, to work with the family. It is meant to be a time to provide additional support, but that doesn't just happen within 5 minutes after an event occurs. And we're not asking for a 5-day suspension, but to have no time between when an event occurs and moving back to instructional practices is also I'm not going to even say it's very challenging. It's almost unreasonable in terms of a few situations that we do have come up. I think our staff is extra scared after what happened this year with the first grader in Virginia. And that is not a reason to change policy fully, but I think we need to think about a continuum of policy, just like we think about a continuum of services.
Board Member Semkin.
One thing I heard you say at the beginning of this is that there's also a staffing component to
in-school suspension.
In-school suspension. And I think I want to just uplift that when we move forward to have a much larger discussion. One of the pieces of the BEP that I think I've received the most feedback around is that if we're going to have a really robust set of consequences that we are planning to implement, that we have to have the proper staffing to do it. And so I think that in our much more our much deeper discussion, I think we need to link our BEP very directly to knowing if we have staff on hand to implement what is best practice, which may actually change what the BEP looks like if we're able to put more staff in the places that we need to in order to meet students' needs completely.
My latest look at the research would suggest that relationships between student to student and student positive relationships are what curb behavior the most, negative behaviors, and produce positive behaviors. So I don't think you're incorrect in thinking that proactive staffing is the route to try to take in terms of improving our response and basically getting ahead of the negative behaviors that may be occurring. That said, we have a very wide population that comes to us in terms of all kinds of things that is not the scholar's fault or not the scholar's responsibility or within their control. And they are communicating, like Board Member Muldrow said, through their actions. And that communication is loud and clear, though, also for other scholars, and also can result in serious physical injuries and mental injuries, emotional injury. So.
Board Member Pearson.
Yeah, I just wanted to lift what Ali mentioned earlier about when children are suspended, they're more likely to be suspended on a reoccurring basis. And so although like I understand the request to ensure, the safety of the child and the other children who may have witnessed, as well as the child who may be the one who is causing harm and trying to support wraparound services, we also know that part of that is also the adult reactions to sometimes with some of the children that are being suspended, and how they are being seen from their forth, and how they are then treated possibly, and possibly resuspended and resuspended and resuspended. And they are on this trajectory of then might showing up in our data later in high school where they might be dropping out, whatnot, because we know that there's a progression, right? So I just wanted just to lift that again, because I think that's a very important piece. And I guess my question around that then is just, where is going to be the professional development for all of our staff, all of our teachers, everyone, to ensure that it's not just only, you know, the adults, the principals that are involved in the situation, but everyone knows that and can have the support to be able to make better decisions for our children, especially around suspension.
As far as the supports, the number one support that we have is NVCI training for our staff, but only special education assistants, special education teachers, administrators, and designated staff members are recipients of that training. However, we are working toward having all staff take the part of the training that is not the physical part of the training, in terms of de-escalation strategies. So we're working in that direction, definitely. There is a lot of work that has been done historically in Madison in terms of mindfulness, positive behavior supports. Some schools have had more success than others in terms of implementation. I think certainly we've come a long way. As a principal of 26 years in the district, I had a very low suspension rate. I do not believe in suspension for suspension purposes. However, as a leader of a building, when you're leading all the students and all the staff and you're responsible for the safety for everyone, I think we have to relook at, I believe if we're going to have a policy, we need to follow it. So if the policy is going to stand and we are going to be supporting parents keeping their kids out of school for a cooling off period, then I'm not quite sure if we're telling the truth about what we're really doing. So I would love a relook at the BEP, but we do need more resources in terms of space and time after an event occurs. And if there isn't an emergency staff that is going to be like a SWAT team that can be sent out to every school when there's a big event, then what is the staff and the principal to do in order to create safety for everyone involved?
Yeah. So one of the recommendations from the safety wellness ad hoc was that all staff, every staff in our building should be trained in the nonviolence, sorry, the acronyms kill me, the nonviolence responses. And that's something that I want to wholeheartedly support, because I think that we all should know how to deal with situations, and then also how to support each other in certain situations. And ultimately that makes a safer environment for our children. And I guess the cost of that, I won't ask that right now. Sorry. I looked at Ross, but I think that that's another conversation that we need to have, is then what is the cost? And then also I hate the word ROI, again, acronym, return on investment. But I think it is important then to look at then how that might actually change the outcomes. So thank you. That's it.
Board Member Castro.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to lift my appreciation and respect for Dr. Hoffman and the concerns raised with, the implementation of this. I will say that what is being spoken is true. There are serious events that occur that cause harm to a learning community, and we have to take those seriously. We have to be serious about addressing the harm so all parties understand what happened, and repairing the harm that occurred so people can succeed in these learning environments and communities. My concern is that I think this particular tool that has been used in doing that has, beyond the event, negative externalities down the line that not all of us can even anticipate in the moment. And so for me, that's why I'm really having trouble with item number 25 in this update. And I just want to amend this proposal to strike number 25 from the update, and then vote on it after number 25 is removed. So that amendment's on the table.
Nikki Vandermeulen, second. Are you calling for discussion? Oh, I apologize.
Okay, so we have a motion to strike item 25. 25, as I read it, I just want to make sure I understand, is for secondary, correct?
I'm
Because-
sorry. I mean 18. I'm sorry.
So do you want to
Yeah.
rescind or correct?
I will correct that for 16 through 20. I apologize.
Okay, so the corrected motion is to strike revisions 16, 17, 18, and 19, and 20.
Yes.
So 16 through 20, and at the elementary level.
I will second again, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Okay, so let me just say, from what I can hear so far, it does seem like some of the concerns as brought forward in this amended motion is at the elementary level. I have not heard any board members at this point commenting about any of the documents brought forward for middle or high school. And so I know that we have an amendment on the floor, and so we'll discuss that in just a moment. I think one of the other pathways forward that I'm thinking about is there a way for us to approve the 4502C and D, which is the middle and high school, to make sure that those changes can go into effect. And then at the elementary level, let's just see, I guess, where we land. So Monica, I don't know. I know we already have a new motion on the floor, so we'll deal with that. Okay, Board Member Muldrow.
I want to thank Board Member Castro for your comments and your amendment. I fully support this amendment. I do think that I was deeply encouraged by Dr. Hoffman's remarks and understanding and compassion towards families and entire school communities and the individual student who may be suspended in these scenarios. I think that a good use of time this summer would to work out what an alternative to suspension looks like. I think we have the time going into the next school year that we don't have to kind of throw our hands up and say, this didn't work, this wasn't the solution, so we don't have one. I think we still need to work towards a solution. My hope is that that solution promotes student wellness and mental health, that our interventions are developmentally appropriate and that they are destigmatized and not used to criminalize young people. I do think there's a relevant thing to say, hey, what's the difference between 5th grade and 6th grade in terms of why we do or don't suspend somebody? But you can't arrest a 9-year-old if they shoot somebody in this state. You can arrest a 10-year-old. So there are real, differences based in age in terms of how we relate to students. I think we should embrace best practice when it comes to student behavior. I think we should embrace developmentally appropriate approaches. I don't think suspension is either at the elementary school level or middle school level or high school level. But I very much appreciate that we had the opportunity to have this conversation thoughtfully as a board this evening.
Okay, Board Member Simkin, discussion around the new motion.
So I absolutely agree that I have some major concerns with the suspension of elementary school students and the effectiveness of it. At the same time, what I'm hearing is that teachers and staff are coming to us and saying that the current situation is unsafe and unmanageable. And I think that if we are going to remove these changes, then we need to be prepared to add resources to schools in order to make sure that our staff can function within their schools well, and that our students are going to be able to be that everybody's needs are going to be met, both the needs of the students that are having the difficulty and the needs of the students that are impacted by it. And so I think I just want us to be prepared that, you know, if we're saying that this isn't the route that we want to go, and I do understand why it may not be, then we have to back that up with resources.
Thank you, Vice President Pearson.
Yeah, I just have a quick point of order just around it. If this if this amendment was to pass, then that would just, we would be approving the BEP adjustments without those parts. However, if it fails, then we could go back to a possible motion of just approving the middle school and high school. And if we didn't approve the elementary, that would be then have to be a separate motion then to table the elementary parts of the BEP. And then my thoughts are, if that is the case, then when will we be able to bring those back? Because my understanding is we're voting on it tonight so that we can be prepared as staff are getting ready for the school year next year and trainings and such like that. So my guess is I guess my question then around it and the point of order is just when will this come back if this motion fails and we were to just approve the other two? Sorry if that was somewhat confusing to the public.
I think it could come back at another work group, maybe in August, if we wanted to, but it is certainly the board's, it's your prerogative to approve the portion for secondary and not for elementary with simply just saying that you would pull 16 through 20 and vote on the other pieces because it's elementary and secondary. So I think it is your option to do that. If we wanted to further discuss elementary, we can set a time to do that during work group.
So yeah, we don't have any work groups in July. And so it would have to be a possible special session if we were to go back. I mean, I'm in favor of, really taking a deeper dive into what is best. And so for me, I may be voting against it, not because the striking, because I agree with the striking. I think that, but I also think that if we go back, it gives us and staff a little more time to kind of come back with responses, speaking to Ali's points.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded, and it is to strike revisions in the elementary BEP items 16 through 20. So I'm going to ask for all those in favor and do a roll call. So Simkin,
Aye.
Muldrow, Castro,
Aye.
Pearson,
Nay.
Vandermeulen,
Aye.
Mosner Feltham.
Aye.
Okay. And I will, I'm gonna abstain. So that passes to strike the revisions 16 through 20 in the elementary BEP. Now let's go back to the original.
511.
Oh, thank you. 551. Yeah. Oh, Holly, I didn't ask for your advisory vote. I apologize on that motion.
Aye.
Okay. All right, now we already have the main motion that was read and seconded, which means if we are approving the elementary, middle, and high school level policies 4502B, 2C, and 2D, that elementary piece now includes the stricken item numbers, right? Okay. All right, so all those in favor of approving the changes to the behavior education plan for the elementary, middle, and high school as set forth, say aye. Okay, that's all those opposed.
Nay.
Okay, Talia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So that passes 6-1. All right, thank you all for your thoughtful conversation. And I also want to thank Deb Hoffman for being up front and taking all of the questions. All right, we are now on to action item 9.1, which is the 2023-24 preliminary budget adoption. I move that the board approve and adopt the 2023-24 preliminary budget as proposed in the total amount of $647,669,118 or $581,154,025 net of interfund transfers, inclusive of funds 10 general fund, 27 special education fund, 30 referendum debt services, 39 non-referendum debt service, 41 capital maintenance fund, 50 food service fund, and 80 community services fund, with said proposed budget having been identified in the document entitled DPI Preliminary Budget Adoption Format in the June 2023-24 Preliminary Budget Book.
Second, Maya.
Who seconded?
Maya.
All right, discussion.
I'd like to actually make an amendment.
Okay,
I move that the Board of Education give custodians an additional raise of $3.20 per hour for base wage increase for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Second, Maya.
all right, discussion.
Yes, if I made any errors, please correct. The reason I brought, if I may.
Yes, please.
The reason I brought this motion is as follows. I wanted to give the $5 and I still want to give the $5. I am trying to walk a tightrope between fiscal responsibility and doing the right thing. What we need is a series of talks along with this, with the janitorial union, and establish a relationship so that moving forward, we can include this. Additionally, we have to include the trades. Being $9.75 behind is something that is unconscionable. By doing $3.20, I chose it so that way no one would be under the $20. That I believe my colleague Ali Meldrew has said brilliantly, so I don't need to say it again. But very simply, this will help to attract staff and retain who we have. Is it everything? No. Do you deserve better? 100%. Would I be glad to walk a shift with you? Absolutely. Just ask and I'll do it. But very, very simply, janitors are still our lifeblood. I can't get in the building, as can many of our disabled students, if there's ice and snow there. I can't get in if they're not shoveled off. If it's not safe, the immunocompromised, as well as every other student in the building, suffers. So that's why I'm doing this. And I'm going to make one personal shout out, even though I know I'm not supposed to, but I'm doing it anyway. Thank you to all those janitors, including the one who ate lunch with me every single day of middle school. So I didn't eat by myself. I appreciate you more than you will ever know. Thank you.
Board Member Mosner Feltham, and then followed by Vice President Pearson.
Thanks. I support Board Member Vandermeulen's amendment for the same reason I support the preliminary budget it amends. I think it's exciting to be able to support our staff. And I think that it meets my values of believing what working people have to say about their working conditions in their jobs. I think listening to what our staff are telling us really clearly that they need is the right move. And I think that it's a super exciting investment and that it's still only one piece of the puzzle. So I look forward to, like Interim Superintendent Kistad said, getting started on a critical year to be able to align ourselves rightly for the future.
Vice President Pearson and then Board Member Simkin.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I understand that with the amendment, we would have to adjust our voting and motions, and possibly because of just adding to the budget book. I guess the two accountants that are here, what adjustments will need to be made for us to be able to approve the budget tonight with this amendment?
Good evening, everyone. Oh. Is it on? I can't tell. Okay, I'm assuming it's on. Good evening, everybody. To your question, Board Member Pearson, I do have some language prepared. However, the way Nikki phrased her amendment, we can proceed with the original motion as amended and simply indicate the inclusion of what I heard was $3.20 for custodial hourly rates. At that point, we can continue approval of the original motion and move forward.
Can you just speak a little louder? I
sorry.
couldn't hear you, sorry.
So yeah, we can continue as the amendment was proposed by Board Member Vandermeulen. If we're looking for a dollar impact for that, the impact of about $3.20 is $1.722 million across funds 10, 50, and 80.
Thank you. And then one other question, and it goes around just like overtime, because I know that right now we are very short-staffed with custodians. And so what would be the overtime impact just based off of just what we've seen historically in the past years or a year or so with the overtime for custodians that we are staffed at right now?
So based on the vacancies we've seen that this year for custodians, it's true we've had one of our highest years of overtime to date. The fill rate has certainly had an impact on what custodial overtime has been authorized and warranted this year. In a typical year for us, it's about $600,000 to $700,000, but we have easily crossed $1 million for this year of overtime already.
So the increase would just be more significant around just the overtime, possibly just like
Yes,
projection.
if we were fully staffed, that would be the goal, is to minimize the amount of overtime in future years.
Okay, thank you.
Ross, please stay.
Will do.
I have a couple of questions for you first. I want to put some data in the room. The first is, what is the annual?
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. What is this better? Okay. What is the annual cost to the district or cost of benefits for full-time employees on average for janitors? Do you have that number?
I don't have that number segregated in my head, but I know that our healthcare is approximately 65 million a year.
Say that again?
65 million a year for healthcare.
Oh, I'm
For
wondering,
all our,
I'm wondering if, so when I think about my salary, I think about the money I take home, and then I think about the value of my benefits. Do you have a number that gives us an average for how much benefits are worth for
the custodial units?
the custodial units?
Give me a minute. For healthcare, approximately 14,600 on average.
And the cost of other benefits?
For WRS and other payroll related benefits are approximately $8,100. Life insurance annually, depending on your salary, it varies quite a bit, but premium cost about $150. Dental cost per year, $760, and long-term disability about $390.
Okay, so that was $23,400.
I'm sorry, can everyone please speak up into the mic? I'm really having a hard
I don't know
time
why.
hearing. Thank you.
Closer too far away, I can't.
Yeah, so the total cost of benefits is about $23,400 that Ross
That's
just shared with
correct.
us. Is it correct that we right now have a starting wage of $20.89 for our custodians once they finish their
Past the trainee. phase,
past their
yes,
training
correct.
period? And so with the 8%, that becomes $22.56 an hour is my calculation, which is also $46,841 a year as a starting after the initial period. What's that called again? The training period is over. I also saw that we have, on average, once we add that 8% to the average salary for custodians, we're looking at a salary of $28.61 an hour, which is $4.89 more than any other school district is currently paying using the data that you provided in the March 15th memo. And that averages to an annual full-time amount of $59,507 a year. And then for the highest salary range, what I've calculated is that we have, with the 8%, that our highest salaried custodians will be making $37.49 an hour, which is $77,972 a year. I went ahead and I looked yesterday, I Googled what custodians are being offered in the city of Madison or around the city of Madison. And this is what I found. I found that at UW-Madison, custodians are starting at $17 an hour. And that is a difference of $5.56 an hour more that we would be paying. At the Overture Center, they're starting at $19.68 an hour, which is a difference of $2.88 an hour more that we pay. For the city of Madison, they're starting at $20.92 an hour. We're currently paying $1.64 an hour more. For Madison College, they're paying between $17.31 and $19.04 an hour. The range that we pay more than that is between $3.52 an hour and $5.25 an hour. At the state of Wisconsin, custodians are currently starting at $15.29 an hour. We are offering $7.27 more an hour. And that was one of the listings for the state of Wisconsin. At another listing in the Capitol building, they're offering $14.33 an hour, and we are offering $8.23 an hour more. And I bring this forward to say that I am really proud of us for passing the 8% salary increase for all of our staff. And I feel really comfortable that we are competitive with the salaries that we are offering right now for custodial staff. I am less comfortable with the salaries that we're offering for our folks in the trades. And I think that that needs to be discussed after we get our salary study completed so that we can make sure that they're in a competitive place. Thank you.
I think Board Member Muldrow you want to go next? Okay.
I have good questions that are specific to you, Ross, and specific to HR, if HR is able to speak to how salary increase impacts retention and our ability to attract staff. I want to start from summer school. So early on, we passed $40 an hour as our rate for summer school educators. It's no secret that last year we had such a hard time attracting summer school educators that we actually had to let hundreds of children know that they were no longer invited to summer school. So I guess I want to ask, how did the $40 an hour increase, or the $40 an hour rate, help us this summer in terms of attracting staff to summer school? Did we see a difference in folks being interested in those positions, or are we similarly situated to last year, in which we had so few educators willing to participate in summer school that we were telling students that they were no longer invited to participate?
So I can't speak specifically to retention, but I do want to remind for the discussion around summer school that we did increase the rate of pay for teachers to $40 an hour based on the fact that we knew we would be running a smaller summer school session and that we would be capping our student enrollment to ensure that we could fit the $40 an hour threshold within our current summer school budget. In terms of other areas of what interest was generated based on $40 an hour or what retention strategies, I'd have to see if there's a member of HR willing to speak on that tonight or able to speak on that tonight.
Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from HR in terms of how we're doing for staffing summer school.
Full disclosure, I'm not HR. Caroline Racine Gillis, and I've been managing summer school since it started. Our current director is out on leave due to a medical issue. So we are at 100% staffed, which is amazing. And we have such high quality teachers. I want to thank you again for passing the $40 an hour because it really seemed to help. And summer school is really going great. And again, fully staffed, and we are at the projections of our student enrollment, which is much different from last year, if you remember. So
thank you so much for speaking to that. I want to emphasize the importance of compensation in attracting and retaining people to roles. And I want to acknowledge that the board has done our best to address that within this budget through the 8% increase and our investment in educators and our commitment to, providing our educators with health insurance. I appreciate Board Member Simpkins' comments. I think you gave a really thorough analysis in some ways of what is the difference between the custodial group and the groups that we saw come forward last year. Last year, we heard folks talking about working for the district for 20 years and making $16 an hour as SCAs. The extreme poverty that people were combating to try to work with our students with disabilities was something that I'm very proud we were able to reconcile, and also is something that for me started in 2017 when SCAs came forward and said we should be making at least $15 an hour, which I believe should be minimum wage. And I don't think anybody in our district should be making minimum wage or a poverty wage. But I think talking about what it means for our custodial staff to make a living wage is an important and thorough conversation. I agree completely with the folks who came forward tonight and said, hey, throughout the pandemic, folks thanked us for our work, demanded that we be present, asked us to do things we had never done before, called us essential. And we feel like that has not been acknowledged or prioritized in this budget. I appreciate your amendment, Board Member Vandermeulen, and I think that amendment in combination with the 8% gives us an incredibly competitive wage. I do think we need to acknowledge the trades in our conversations moving forward, and I also think we need to have a real conversation about what it looks like to reconcile the salary schedule across the board. So I'm curious what other board members think on the $3.20 adding up to $5. I do want to remind folks who did not necessarily watch the series of meetings we had last year that we never voted on $5. We voted first on 3%. And we only actually ended up voting to get to $5 when we were made aware of additional resources that we were going to receive from the state, which is not the case in this moment. So I think it's important to highlight the differences between this year's conversation and last year's conversation.
Board Member Castro.
Thank you. As to what Board Member Muldrow and others have alluded to, I am interested in having a conversation going into future budget years involving a comprehensive compensation plan. I think this has been a cumbersome process to go unit by unit that has inspired some feelings. And so after this, I'm interested in having a comprehensive compensation plan for all units.
Any other discussion?
I look, Ali and my board, I look forward very simply, and Nichelle as our president, I look forward to working with all of you on this discussion. I think we do need a compensation study. I think we do need to discuss the trades, absolutely. But tonight, I think is a good start.
All right, y'all. We have a motion to give custodians an additional raise of $3.20 per hour for base wage. We've already discussed, so I'm going to go ahead and call the question. So all those in favor of, I'll do that later. All those in favor of giving the custodians an additional raise of $3.20 per hour, I'll do roll call. Board Member Semken.
Nay. Nay.
All right, thank you. Board Member Muldrow.
Aye.
Board Member Castro.
Yes.
Board Member Nichols, yes. Board Member Pearson.
Aye.
Board Member Vandermeulen.
Aye.
Board Member Mosner Feltham.
Aye.
All right, that pass. Oh, I'm sorry, Talia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All right, that passes. I said yes or aye. I said yes or aye. That passes 6-1. Thank you. All right, now. Let me go back to our main motion, and I just want to make sure I understood this. Ross, you said the main motion as already read and seconded can be voted on. Okay. All those in favor of approving and adopting the 2023-24 preliminary budget as proposed, say aye. All right, Talia, your advisory vote.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes 7-0. Okay, can you, okay, we have one more motion related to the budget. Okay, I move that the board approve the preliminary tax levies by fund, with the said levy approvals being one, for the purpose of enabling short-term borrowing by the district during the 2023-24 fiscal year, and two, subject to modifications by the board prior to November 1st, 2023, in conjunction with certifying the final levy amounts based upon the then current status of the 2023-24 school district budget, considering such alterations and amendments as may be made prior to levy certification. Now I'm going to read the fund amounts, correct? As part of the motion? Okay. Fund 10 General Fund, $337,486,955. Fund 38 Non-Referendum, 0. Fund 30 Referendum Approved Debt Service, $19,943,092. Fund 41 Capital Expansion Fund, $5 million. Fund 80 Community Services Fund, $16,753,068, for a total tax levy of which will be updated in October for final approval, of $379,183,115.
Second, Maya.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the preliminary tax levies, say aye. Talia, I see your hand. Thank you. That's an advisory vote. Yes for you. All right. That passes 7-0. All right, we are now moving on to our consent items. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the June 26, 2023 regular school board meeting exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his, her, or their affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated, hereby subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any separations? What? Okay, does anybody know? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of adopting and approving all motions set forth? Oh. Okay, one separation then. Okay, we are going to go to 10.59. I move that the Board of Education accept all grants and donations. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let me go back. All those in favor of approving and adopting all of the other consent agenda item motions as set forth, say aye. All right. And Talia, your advisory vote on that? I think I saw hands. Aye. Okay, perfect. Okay, so all other items have passed. Thank you for that. Now to 10.59. I move that the Board of Education accept all grants and donations under $10,000 received by the MMSD since May 22nd, 2023 in the total amount of $63,890.90. All right. Yes, Board Member Muldrow.
So I asked that we pulled this motion because I think that it's important to acknowledge the people who support and give to our district and to thank the folks who contribute to this district through donations. So I wanted to take a moment and recognize the $63,890.90 that have come to our district via the generosity of people who support our public schools. Thank you all for giving to MMSD. And with that, I hope we approve this motion.
All right. All those in favor of approving? Aye. All right. Talia, okay, I see your hand up. Advisory vote 7-0. Thank you. Board Member Mosner Feltham, is your hand up for something? Oh, okay. All right, we're going to move into other items of business. All right, we have some ratifications to do. I move that the Board of Education ratify the Madison Teachers, Inc. Educational Support Employees Association Collective Bargaining Agreement for base wage increase for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, aye. All right, I see Talia's hand up, 7-0. Next, I move that the Board of Education ratify the Madison Teachers, Inc. Teacher Unit Collective Bargaining Agreement for base wage increase for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, aye. All right, and I saw Talia's hand up as well, 7-0. Vice President Pearson, is your hand up? Okay. All right, next, I move that the Board of Education ratify the Madison Teachers, Inc. Substitute Teachers Unit Collective Bargaining Agreement for base wage increase for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. That's 7-0, and Talia's hand was up. Passes. All right, we're now going to go through other reports to the board. I will report out for City of Madison Education Committee. We held a meeting on June 14th. We had an incredible presentation from the County Youth and Governance Program, who had done some really great research on connecting students who are homeless with also looking at the importance of housing and other resources. We discussed a draft policy for our three bodies regarding driver's education, and then began to talk about potential budget recommendations. The City of Madison also asked us to review the official code of ethics for elected and appointed officials. That concludes our report. Student Senate. Talia, do you feel prepared to give the Student Senate report? It's in board docs under 13.2.
Sure. In terms of Student Senate, there was an election that occurred on the past few weeks of school. It ended in a tie for the board representative position. So there was a rerun election. 3 votes were counted. The Student Senate president position was awarded to Megan Fernand.
Thank you so much. Madison School and Community Recreation Advisory Committee.
That's me. I was so glad to join the MSCR Advisory Committee for my first meeting repping the Board of Ed there. We had a presentation from Cheryl Dietrich, who talked about the MSCR community programs. We went over we heard reports from the executive director, Janet Dyer, that MSCR West opened just this past week. By all accounts, it looks amazing and has 17 classes coming in from their temporary locations, and there will be an open house on August 9th from 5 to 7 p.m. with sample classes, tours, refreshments, and a chance to look at the fall program guide. We heard a report that new MSCR custodial staff have begun or begin today, and so that's exciting too. Also about the July 19th Friends of MSCR golf outing, there's still space available for those who would like to support MSCR at the golf fundraiser. We took a look at the committee goals, including staff and volunteer recognition, which we'll be working on going forward. Next time we meet in September, we will have a presentation from the MSCR Sports, Aquatics, and Adapted programs, as well as elect a new chair for the committee.
Thank you very much. Policy Committee.
So we met on the first week of June to discuss our procedures of just how we will have our ways of working, but also how the board would be able to request certain policies to be reviewed, and also create a calendar of policies. Because of the transition that has been happening in the month of June, we haven't been able to solidify the calendar as of yet. However, now that the transitions have happened, within the first couple weeks of July, we have planned consolidating all of the different policies, where we're at with the policies, who's going to where in the department that those policies lie, and create a plan for it. So our hope is to have that work done in July to be able to bring back to the board.
Board Governance Committee. Do you want to take that, Board Member Simkin?
Yes, I do. The Board Governance Committee met, I'll say the last time we met, we presented a summary of responses to our request for quotes at the board retreat that was last Friday, June 23rd. Our next steps are to follow up with one of the vendors and ask the questions that came about during the retreat.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to other business. Regarding summer 2023 Board of Education meeting schedule, I move that the Board of Education approve the following dates for summer 2023 meetings. July 24th will be our regular Board of Education meeting. July 28th, a special Board of Education retreat. August 7th, instruction work group. August 7th, also a special meeting in open session. August 14th, operations work group, and August 28th, regular Board of Education meeting.
Second.
Any
Aye.
Thank you. Any discussion on that schedule? All right. Sure. Okay. Okay. All those in favor of approving the summer schedule? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Talia. All right. That passes 7-0. All right. Now we have dates for our regular meeting dates for the 2023-24 school year. I move that the Board of Education approve the following Mondays for holding the regular board meetings at 6 p.m. over the 2023-24 school year. July 24th, August 28th, September 26th, October 30th, November 20th, December 18th, January 29th, February 26th, March 18th, April 15th, May 20th, June 24th.
Second, Maya.
Right. So we want to avoid any of the board meetings falling during Jewish observed holidays. Does anybody know at this time? I mean, we've had to modify in the past if they have. Okay, so board member, I don't know whose hand was up first. Okay, board member Pearson, then Mosner Feltham.
I was just gonna say, I think we need to be mindful that not to only just include Jewish holidays, but all holidays, including Islamic holidays and other holidays that might fall into our calendar.
Okay, MMSD has an approved kind of religious holiday observance policy, which does outline which observances are followed and observed. So is there board member Simkin, board member, board member Mosner Feltham?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the September 26th meeting is on a Tuesday, to make room for Yom Kippur, which suggests to me that the person who put this calendar together took into account the MMSD religious observances holiday without having checked every single one. I'm saying that seems fine to me.
Board member Simkin and then board member Muldrow. I'm sorry, Ali. I think Laura was up.
So just because we had that trouble several times in the last year, I kind of want to double check, but I don't know that I have time to do that right now. So I'm just a little weary about it because we seem to regularly schedule on Jewish holidays.
Member Muldrow.
So I'm comfortable voting at this time and adjusting if folks research these dates and find that they are interfering with anybody's faith or ability to observe a sacred or holy day within the context of their faith. The other thing I want to acknowledge is that we shifted this year, and I think we shifted in March, which means we may have shifted onto a holiday to avoid spring break. And so I guess I'm curious if the March 18th meeting is designed to alleviate folks working on during spring break. So does that, yeah. Is that the purpose of having it on the 18th? Do you know?
Yes, I believe so, as spring break is March 25th that week.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jesse. I also want to say, Jesse,
Thank you, Jesse.
you did say that these dates you verified that they don't land on holidays, on religious holidays.
Yes, based on the religious holiday calendar on the district's website, but if there's one that's not on there, I can't verify that.
Board Member Van de Meulen.
So also we've included Juneteenth, correct? It falls on a Monday, and I don't know. Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't
that would
think
be a
so, But
Wednesday.
I wanted to make sure and include absolutely everything.
Nikki, I think as we look at our calendar for next year with Juneteenth, that would be a summer school implication. So we can have that on our radar as we look at the next year's summer school.
So we started summer school.
All right, I hope all questions have been addressed. All those in favor of approving the Monday schedule for regular Board of Education meetings in 2023-24, aye. All right, thank you, and thank you, Talia. That passes 7-0. We have no old or new business. So we are
Motion
at
to-
adjournment. Good
Motion to
people.
adjourn.
Oh, that was so fast. All those in favor of adjourning our regular June Board of Education meeting, say aye. All right, congratulations, y'all.